All right, let's continue our discussion about decisions. Now, in the previous video, we talked about random based decisions and we used the analogy of rolling dice. So let's write some Java code, the most boring game imaginable. I'm going to do a demonstration where we're going to roll a die, the computer's going to roll a die, and basically whoever wins we're going to acknowledge this, but we'll throw a little caveat in there. We're going to say that there's a house, so if you go to Las Vegas, the house wins on a tie. So going to roll a die, computer's going to roll a die. If I win, hooray, I win. If I lose, I lose. If it's a tie, we both lose. So let's write that code. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to create a new Java class. If you remember from the end of the previous video, I said I'm going to randomly pick an IDE. Well, this is IntelliJ. This is kind of the IDE that I like to use. The only reason I chose it versus like an Eclipse or Jupyter Notebook was I'm familiar with the JetBrains PyCharm IDE. So anyways, I'm going to create a Java class, call it roll die or dice. All right, and nice and creative there. Now, if you remember from the previous video, the first thing we got to do is we have to import that random class or that random package. So I'm going to say import Java util random. Notice again the uppercase R. Now, to save us a little bit of time, yes, I've already written the code on another screen. So I'm going to do a lot of copy and pasting so you don't have to sit here and watch me type. But sure enough, public class, roll a dice. It matches with the roll a dice up here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create our main method. And for brevity's sake, I'm going to do a copy and paste of the main method. But we'll review it real quickly. We're dealing with a project here. So public says this method would be available to all of the classes that would be in this project. We're really not going to return or do anything with it. So we're going to keep it pretty static, etc. and void. So watch the previous videos and that explanation. We make sure that our braces line up. So let's start filling in here. Excuse me. Well, if you remember from our discussion in the previous video, we need to create an object to create random generators. We have to instantiate a new object from the random class. So basically declare it. So we're going to say random. We're going to call it rangen. Again, I could call it Alice. I can call it Bob. But I want to make it something descriptive. So when I'm reviewing it or studying it or debugging it, I know what that is. So that's something I'm going to create. And again, to save some time here, we need to initialize our variables. And first variable, we're going to call it first my dice. We're just going to work with integers right now and the computer dice. Okay, so we instantiated a random class to create the object. That's what all this is. Now we created variables. Now, just for brevity's sake, let me do some cutting and pasting. And what I have here is basically my dice is going to be equal to random gen next integer in a range of 0 to 5 plus 1. So that's going to be a 6-sided die. So system out, you rolled a, that's what I rolled. I'm going to do the same thing for the computer dice, randomly generate a number between 0 and 5. That's what the 6 is going to tell us. And let me make this just a little bit bigger so we can see, oops, kind of expand it, just make it just a little bit bigger. One more. All right. Then what do we have here? This is one of the issues just kind of pointed out with some of these very advanced IDEs. They will start inserting almost like comments and code in there. So don't worry about this. If it was another IDE, we wouldn't see that bound semicolon. So anyway, so we roll a die. 0 to 5 plus 1, that's going to give us between 1 and 6. That's good. And same thing here. Now, next step, again, just for some clarity's sake, I am going to kind of break the output a little bit so it's a little bit prettier. So it's going to tell me what I rolled, it's going to tell what the computer rolled, and then it's going to have a blank line, and it's going to announce the winners and the losers. Well, how do we determine the winners and the losers? Well, we need if statements. This whole thing is not so much about random numbers. I think random numbers aren't self-explanatory, but we understand them, and there's a whole variety of ways we can do it. Remember, these videos are about decisions, and I said this is a decision based upon a random number. So we're going to keep our decisions very, very simple. Decision 1 is basically if it's a tie. So we're going to say if my dice is equal to, remember we have to have that double equal, it's not an assignment, but double equal to the computer's dice, do something. We have our curly braces here. And remember that Java, its blocks of code are surrounded by those braces. I really shouldn't call them curly braces, but by the braces. To save some time here, again, I will copy and paste. Right? So if the dices are equal, or the die are equal, then print out, sorry, it's a tie, the house wins. Then we're going to do an else if. Right? Same thing, we make sure our braces line up. I am going to do my friend the copy and paste so you don't have to see me type. All right. Oh, yay. I didn't quite put the condition here. That's kind of silly. I'm going to say if my dice is greater than, whoop, make sure case matters. There we go. So if it's equal, it's a tie, we both lose. If my dice is greater, yay, I won. And then finally, since there's only 3 discrete states, there is a tie, a win, or a loss. We don't have to do an else if, we can just do a else. And again, to save some time here, I will do a little cutting and pasting. All right, so we make sure things line up. Not quite sure why it's not allowing me to. It could be just the format. Let's see if it runs. Let's see if it runs. I mean, it's lining up here. It's telling me it's lining here. It's just not allowing me to move it over. It's interesting. Let's see if it runs. All right, it did run. It said you rolled a 6, your competition rolled a 2, winners and losers, yay, I won. And if I keep on running this, run it again, I rolled a 2, I went, yay, I won. Let's see if we can get a loss here. Okay, there's a loss. I rolled a 1, the competition rolled a 4. Yeah, sorry, you competition. And we can sit here, and I don't want to spend the time running it, waiting for a tie, but you get the sense. If we go through the code, basically the code, we create a random number, it was for a 6-sided die. But most important is here's our decisions, right? So say you're a gamer or a programmer, there's a lot of decisions that we would just randomly would be based upon a random thing. Now, for brevity's sake, I'm going to do the same code, but this time I am going to use 2 die. So let me create a new Java class, and this one will say roll 2 dice. Java. Okay. I'm going to do a big copy and paste here so I don't have to, you guys don't have to see me retype anything. So I'm going to copy and paste the whole program from one area to another. But let's break it down a little bit, because I put some things in here that I feel is interesting. Fundamentally, it's the same thing. We have the random. We're importing the random. Now we're calling this class. We're calling this class roll 2 dice. There's our main method. That's always good to have. We're instantiating an object, or basically creating an object to create random numbers. We have, instead of 2 integers, we have 4 integers. And now here I'm rolling 2 dice. So in your logical thinking, if you're running a game and you're doing 2 6-sided die, the random numbers, the value of each die is important. The random number would not be 2 to 12. You really have to think about it's 2 6-sided die, not a range of 2 to 12. Some games are very important concerning dice. This is not a video about die, but here's where we have to think in terms of what is really going on. In this regard, now we have this little bit fancier print statement. It says I rolled die 1 and dice 2, and for a total of, and if I look right here, what I did was right inside the print statement, I added those 2 integers. Okay. And then if I clean up the window down here, I did the same thing for the competition. 2 separate random numbers between 1 and 6. And then I basically said, print here. I rolled, comp dice 1, comp dice 2 for a total of, and again, I combine those 2 numbers together. What I'm doing is, in my mindset as I'm building this code, I want to keep those 2 dice separate. Even though we're using them together, I'm treating them as 2 separate entities. And then I get into my winners and losers. And down here in this if structure, again, I am keeping those 2 dice as separate entities. So I'm comparing the arithmetic. So I'm saying add dice 1 to dice 2, add dice 1 to dice 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Same thing that we saw in the previous Java program. But this one, I'm just getting a little bit more creative, but more, I want to demonstrate that I'm trying to keep both of those things separate, but yet the conditions are still going to be met based upon the combination of those 2. So let's run this program. Give it a second. And it said you rolled a 1 and a 2 for a total of 3. Your competition rolled a 3 and a 1 for a total of 4. Winners and losers. Sorry, your competition won. Let's run it again. I rolled a 5 and a 6 for 11. They rolled a 5 and they rolled doubles. Yeah, we roll doubles all the time in the real world. And yay, I won. One more time. I don't think I'll get a tie here, but it's always 2, 4 and a 2, 6, 6 and 4, 10. Now, this program was not so much about random numbers. Yeah, it showed a very valuable tool about random numbers, and we use random numbers or random situations all the time, whether we're flipping a coin, rolling a die, doing something that just says it's random. It's the decision process. So this video was our first introduction into those decision process. Now, let's go on and learn something.